Good afternoon, welcome back to Football League World TV. It's time for another edition of the EFL London Show. I'm your host, George Douglas, and joining me this week is Billy Mully. Billy, how you getting on?
Yeah, doing well, thank you. Another good week and a busy week of EFL football, both news and live matches as well, and looking forward to the weekend.
Yep, there's plenty to talk about ahead of the weekend. Another packed weekend fixture list across the Championship, League One and League Two. People at home, people wherever you're watching, do get in touch, particularly fans of London clubs. Let us know your thoughts about your team, how you're getting on so far this season, what are your thoughts ahead of the weekend as well. Let's get straight into the thick of the action then by kicking off with QPR. We're going to look at QPR crashing out of the Carabao Cup, unfortunately for Hoops fans. Obviously lost to Sunderland. Drew with Sunderland actually in the 90 minutes. It was 0-0 and then crashed out on penalties. Billy, I think we have to start though with the quite controversial, I think it's fair to say, goal that was ruled out in QPR's favour, or against QPR's favour if you like. Charlie Austin with the goal, coming from an Albert Adoma shot, ruled out for offside. Mark Warburton called it an appalling decision that he expects the officials to be staggered by themselves when they look back at it. I think he's got every right to be angry with that, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think he's correct in saying it was an appalling decision. I watched it over a few times now and I still can't see the logic towards it. But yeah, it's an incident that if QPR go on to go through, not many people sort of go back to it. It might sort of do the rounds for a little bit on social media, but because of the impact it had, obviously not the sole determinant of why QPR didn't go on to win the tie, but yeah, it completely changed the complexion of the game. And yeah, in the end, it's Sunderland that have gone through. I can't really justify the linesman's decision any reason at all. I don't really have an explanation. I feel you feel for linesmen in those situations as well, because it's something that's glaringly obvious from the pictures, but you don't see the full story. But at the same time, sort of this level, you don't expect decisions like that to happen. But ultimately, it's QPR had sort of, it wasn't the reason why QPR have gone crashing out. I think that they weren't fully at it on the night, created some good chances, but equally so did Sunderland. It was a strong team from QPR as well that they've put out. A few changes, not too many, not too distant from their strongest starting 11 in my opinion. And yeah, it was quite surprising, but I think it also shows how good Sunderland are, and if they do get promoted, that they can sort of more than carry their weight with the side that they've currently got.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, I think QPR, when the draw got made, QPR would have seen Sunderland at home, and obviously compared to the sort of plethora of Premier League teams that were left, QPR would have thought that this was a real opportunity to get into the last eight of a major competition here in this country. Can you understand, maybe Warburton was obviously frustrated for the decision, but do you think he was even more frustrated because he knew how big of an opportunity it was to get QPR into a quarter-final?
Yeah, I think he realised it was a massive opportunity, and it was at the same time. I think that the fact that he named a very, very strong side showed the respect to Sunderland. Sunderland are probably a team that could be operating in the Championship with the squad that they do have. But at the same time, QPR at home, strong team in the division as well. They're a team we all expect to be knocking in and around the playoffs come the end of the season. So in that respect, yes, I think Warburton expected his team to be better, and that's where the frustrations come from.
Yeah, certainly an unfortunate result for QPR. They host Nottingham Forest tomorrow night at the Kyle Prince Foundation Stadium. We'll get on to that later on when we look ahead to the weekend's games. Let's move away from QPR, but keep in West London and talk Fulham. We've been told at Football League World earlier this week that Liverpool are now among the clubs interested in Fabio Carvalho. It seems like every week a new major European team is interested in the young Fulham attacking midfielder. Obviously, his contract is up at the end of the season. There's still no real progress. By all accounts, he's changed his management company at the moment, so it might not be until at least January that a new deal signed, if it is indeed at all. Billy, what do you make of this story? I guess the first question has to be, if he did move to Liverpool, he probably wouldn't get into the team straight away, but do you think, given his potential, he'd get there eventually?
I definitely think so. You think back to Harvey Elliott last year, had a very good spell in the Championship, and at the start of the season he was sort of regularly playing. So in that respect, I don't think Liverpool are shy of giving younger players and up and coming players that opportunity at first team level. Obviously a team full of talent throughout, international talent, European talent, and that's justified by how brilliant they have been over the last few years. But it'd be training in amongst a side that are excellent to watch. The philosophy there at Liverpool's there for all to see, and I think that would only improve Carvalho as a player. All the teams so far, we've heard Barcelona, Real Madrid, other teams in the Premier League share their interest, but I think Liverpool would be the best one for him in terms of his own development. But at the same time, Fulham will not be wanting him to go so easy, tying him down to a new contract. Their ultimate ambition at the moment. And if that doesn't come into place, then I think they'd be wanting him to go to a team like Liverpool, a side that will develop him, who will give him the opportunities. And in terms of what we look at, Barcelona and Real Madrid, they're two teams that are not as deadly and not as dominant as they used to be. So in terms of playing opportunities and potential, I think Liverpool is probably the best club that Fulham would want him to go to.
I just wonder, obviously, Liverpool aren't going to want to deal with advisors and agents that potentially, obviously, they're not naive, and they know that these people look to get the very best out of their players. But do you think there'll be a little bit of concern that they'll look at it, and it does seem, from what we can tell from the outside at least, that Fulham have obviously done all they can to try and get him to sign a contract, but it seems like the people in his ear have kind of prevented him from doing so far. So do you think clubs like Liverpool, other sort of major sides that are being linked with him at the moment, do you think they'll look at that and just have a little note of caution over potentially signing him? It's sort of the baggage, if you like, that comes with him?
Yeah, I certainly know what you mean. I think it's something that is prolonged too long, and I think when these situations happen, it's a little bit of a red flag. I think he's 19 years old, and there's a lot going on for him, so you can sort of understand the delay, change in management as well. You can sort of see that as well, but the fact that it has taken so long, and we're sort of no closer to an ending, it seems. So in that respect, yeah, I see that a little bit as a red flag, but I think all he can do is, when he fully returns to full fitness, is go and prove himself once again. He was excellent at the start of the campaign, but I think he needs to show those levels again within a Fulham side that's constantly improving, and he's going to find it difficult to get straight back into the side, but his early season form suggests that he can definitely get himself back into contention and back to those levels where clubs like Liverpool, Real Madrid and Barcelona obviously scouted him for that reason.
Okay, we will see what happens. Certainly a story that continues to rumble on. That's Fabio Carvalho being linked with Liverpool earlier this week. Let's keep with the Championship, or at least in one sense this story. We're going to talk Millwall and Sutton United now in a joint attempt, looking at an informed striker. First time we've ever done the double graphic as well, Billy. I don't know if that was as slick as it could have been, but we had to go anyway. Yeah, but this is the story. The Millwall aren't yet looking at recalling striker Isaac Olaofe. I think I've said that okay. I'm not too sure on that pronunciation, but Millwall aren't going to recall him, even though he's in decent form at the moment for Sutton United. Do you think that's a good decision from the Lions, Billy?
Yeah, I don't think he's been playing enough at Sutton. I think he's been restricted to only 2 or 3 starts this season, but he's obviously shown with 2 goals that he knows where the back of the net is. A dynamic, athletic option, a player that gets in behind and obviously has the ability to score goals. So I think in terms of what he's doing at Sutton, Millwall will be happy where he is, and sort of if he can continue that into the latest parts of this season, then he's got every right to try and get into the side for next season. But in terms of recalling him in January, I don't see there being any point. Millwall, obviously, I think they're perhaps a little bit short going forwards. Bradshaw returned and returned to scoring form the other day, which is a good sign, but I still think they lack a little bit of pace going forward. Afobe, he sort of brings that, but not in a way that sort of other teams have. So I don't think it's right for him to be recalled just yet. Maybe see how he continues within that Sutton side. Obviously impressing at the moment, but yeah, I don't see there being too much of a reason to bring him back.
Okay, yeah, no, I think that's fair enough. I mean, keeping with Millwall, Rowe has said that they probably will look to do some kind of business in January. I think, they're having an okay time a bit in the Championship, aren't they? But, as has been the case for a while with Millwall, really, they just need a little bit more cutting edge, don't they? They're in decent nick at the moment, aren't they? Won 4 of the last 5 games, but just find a little bit of extra cutting edge. Do you think that's where they'll be looking in January?
I think so. I've been quite surprised with Millwall because obviously they're in that sort of group at the moment that are on 21 points, which is the same. I think there's 7 teams that stretches into the playoffs. So they're right within it at the moment. 4 wins in 5, but the one game they did lose against Luton, which I was there for, they were booing Rowett, and it seems that the style of football, the way they go about setting up against opposition is what's become a little bit of a repetitive kind of thing that Millwall are a very good side, and I don't think they should be setting up to defend. They should be going out to win games because they do have that talent. And I know we've spoken before about an over-reliance on Jed Wallace, but I don't think that's the sole story. I think they've got Shea Ojo as well, who will get into form as the season prolongs. They've got sort of forward players, Inaphobia and Bradshaw, that do provide that attacking threat and do score goals. So I think Millwall fans want more positivity, and that's quite weird to say after picking up 12 points from a possible 15, but you can sort of see where that's coming from at the same time.
Yeah, certainly can. We will see how things progress there at the New Den. Let's keep in South London. Let's move to Charlton. Johnny Jackson's first game, I say first game in charge, obviously had a game in charge last season against Bristol Rovers, so second game in charge as caretaker manager was a positive one, 1-0 at the Stadium Light against Sunderland. Charlton do seem to have quite a hold over Sunderland at times, obviously a famous playoff record against them. Billy, I guess his audition couldn't have gone much better, could it really, in terms of getting the full-time Charlton role?
Oh, it was brilliant. In terms of, I think a lot of people would have had Sunderland to win their accumulators. I think I got about 3 or 4 messages saying, why would you have told me Sunderland? And yeah, looking back when a team's got a new manager, yeah, it's a bit of a dodgy one. But I think that is the hardest place to go to in League One. Stadium of Light. Seen yesterday how tough they are to break down, how good of an outfit they have been this season. And I think Sunderland are a very, very strong team who could go on to win League One quite easily. So to go there, pick up a win, keep a clean sheet, which I don't think many other teams will do this year, is excellent for Charlton. And I think that's a glimpse of what is to come, because I see Johnny Jackson as a young progressive manager who could have a very, very enjoyable career at the helm at Charlton. Obviously, it might not go that way. It's by no means secure his job at Charlton at the moment. But they do have another presentable opportunity at the weekend against Doncaster. I'm sure we'll go into that a little bit more detail in a bit. But Doncaster are not too great of a side, so I think Charlton have every bit of confidence at the moment, and it's crazy how it just takes one game to completely turn things around.
Yeah, we'll get into the weekend game against Doncaster in a little bit. But I read a tweet after the game, after the Sunderland game. Obviously, there's plenty of positive Charlton tweets, but one of them said that, what's good about Jackson is that he's a Charlton man. And I think at a club like Charlton, quite often when they've got someone like that in charge, they seem to have, that extra little bit about them. I think you look at the likes of, obviously, Alan Kirbishley had a great time there. Chris Powell as well, massive respect. Obviously, Lee Bowyer for a lot of the period he was there as well. And Jackson's in a similar mould, isn't he? Do you think, Thomas Sandgaard, obviously he went down his own route, bringing in Nigel Adkins to replace Bowyer at the time. Do you think now he maybe will take a sort of step back and look at, the previous success Charlton have had with different managers, and look at, the appreciation Jackson's obviously got among the fan base, and he's got to be tempted, doesn't he, to give him, the full-time role, providing the results are there.
100%. And I think that comes back to what Marcus Ali said when Adkins was first sacked. He said that a Charlton manager, a Charlton man, a person who knows the club well needs to come in. And I think that is something that will get the fans on side. It will get sort of the whole club behind, and it's something that I feel that will be a great benefit to Charlton. As you say, the success they've had with Charlton man in charge is quite staggering, really. So you can see the argument for that. Johnny Jackson, I think, fits the bill as well. He's not just a Charlton man, as we said before. He's someone that's sort of been in a position where I don't think he's been linked with any jobs before, but his name has definitely cropped up. And I think this is the perfect opportunity for him to go and prove himself in the Football League.
Yeah, it's certainly got off to a good start at the Stadium of Light last weekend. Tom T is definitely a Johnny Jackson fan. Johnny Jackson he says on YouTube. Do get in touch with further comments you've got about your club. We're talking about the London clubs in the EFL. Let's move away then from Charlton, but let's keep with League One. Let's talk AFC Wimbledon next. And some bad news for Paul Kalambai, out for 3 months with medial collateral ligament damage, which never sounds nice. Out for 3 months. It's a similar time period as well for Will Nightingale, who of course he'd come into the Wimbledon team to replace. Billy, it's really bad news for the player, isn't it? He's only just sort of broken into the side, a good run of games in place of Nightingale, as I mentioned, and now he's out until sort of February time by the sounds of it. That's what Mark Robinson's been saying, at least. Wimbledon are not having much luck with injuries in that sense, are they?
Not at all, and it was very unfortunate at first when Nightingale got injured, because it wasn't just his defensive capabilities that were on show. He was a big threat in the other box as well, scoring goals and winning headers. So yeah, I think when Kalambai came in, I think he had a lot of pressure on his shoulders. Obviously, being a younger player as well, 22 years old, I think there was questions whether he could sort of step up to first team level, and that's not solely because he's a young player, because of course they've got a very youthful squad, but I think it's the centre back position he's in. It's a lot of responsibility, and the fact that Nightingale is so experienced and has sort of the defensive capabilities, it was all sort of questions as whether Kalambai could come in and do that job to a similar effect. And I think he did show that he could, and he was showing the potential that he does have. And in that respect, it makes it a very big loss. And now Wimbledon are in a position where they're going down the pecking order, seeing who's available, and that's not a position you really want to be in.
No, it's certainly going to be tough for them in the next few months having to deal with that. We wish Kalambai well. Obviously, we wish Nightingale well too. Hopefully, they can make speedy recoveries as much as possible, but most importantly, full recoveries. Two pretty significant injuries, so hopefully they can get back in the side as soon as possible, and obviously be back at full fitness as well for Wimbledon towards the closing stage of the season. One final team to look at in this headline section, and that's Leyton Orient. And obviously, Orient started really well this season, but they've not won a league game since the 18th of September, and a lot of draws have crept in, haven't they, of late, Billy? 4 draws on the spin, 8 in total this season now. I think at times this year, as many people have said, Millwall have been the specialists for draws, but I think it's fair to say Leyton Orient have surpassed them, and probably not for the better in many ways in the League Two table. Sitting 10th now. What do you think is going on there at the moment under Kenny Jackett? I mean, it seems like a small section of the fans got a little bit annoyed with certain aspects of their game. There's still plenty there to like about this Orient team. There's no reason why they can't get straight back into the playoff picture. They're hardly out of it. But yeah, they need to find a little bit more cutting edge again, don't they?
Yeah, I think that you've sort of nailed it there in terms of cutting edge. That seems to be the problem at the moment. Obviously, resilience still a difficult team to break down and to beat. But yeah, as you say, it's not even necessarily goals drying up. It's a fact of key moments and having the cutting edge to edge teams out of the game, really. And that's what they need if they do have automatic promotion hopes. They need to be able to turn these points into 3. They might not be at their best at times, but they sort of need to find that winning formula. And whilst we're still really early in the season, 8 draws out of 14 is going to be a hindrance. And I think what we're seeing with Orient as well is there's a little bit of a reluctance to tweak the system. 3-4-3 has been sort of in favour since I think game week 5. So maybe tweaking that a little bit, maybe partnering up Harry Smith with Sartoriu or even one of the wingers, sort of invert them a little bit more in Drin and Archibald. Perhaps they could partner Smith up top. Obviously, Smith's a big physical presence, and a quicker forward next to him would benefit off that. And I think a big part of it's the predictability factor, and that's where I think they're getting undone at the moment. And yeah, as I say, 8 draws out of 14 is not a position you want to be in, and that is what's cost them at the moment. That's what's cost them a playoff spot, and that's what's obviously cost them an automatic spot so far too.
Yeah, certainly a little bit of work for Kenny Jackett to do, but I'm sure he will have a plan in mind to try and get Orient back to winning ways. Obviously started this season very well in League Two. Right, before we go, let's look ahead to the weekend's action involving the London clubs in the EFL. We'll start with tomorrow night's game at the Kyan Prince Foundation Stadium. QPR host Nottingham Forest. We have had a comment from Liam. Big game for QPR tomorrow night. He will be there alongside plenty of other Hoops fans, and no doubt a decent away support as well from Forest. It's a big game though, isn't it, Billy? Obviously QPR lost to Peterborough last weekend in the Championship. We've touched on their Carabao Cup exit as well in the week, and they're playing a Forest team that resurgent under Steve Cooper until last weekend, where they were sort of humbled really at home by Fulham 4-0. So both teams looking to get back to winning ways. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, it promises to be a cracker. I'm looking forward to it because both teams have shown quality at parts this season. QPR nearer the start of the season. Forest, I think, despite their 4-0 loss the other day, they're a team in confidence, and that 4-0 scoreline wasn't truly reflective of what we saw. Obviously, Steve Cooper's come in and saw instant success, 4 wins in his first 4. And I think QPR, in terms of performance levels and in terms of results, have slipped in recent weeks. And whilst I still hold QPR in high regard, I still expect them to do well. I think Forest, I'm expecting a Forest win here, a narrow Forest win, 2-1.
Okay, that's an interesting, bold claim, going for an away win there. I personally can see a draw. I think both teams will be so eager to not lose another game after last weekend that they may just cancel each other out. So that's tomorrow night at the Kyan Prince Foundation Stadium. Saturday lunchtime in the Championship even sees Fulham host West Brom. Billy, you're going to be there at Craven Cottage. That's a really exciting game, isn't it, as well? Up at the top of the table. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, another really good game before we get into the 3:00 games. And yeah, it's 2 very, very strong teams. I think we've seen in recent weeks, and the way the table's shaping up to be, it could be a bit of a 3-horse race this season with Bournemouth added to the 2 that are playing on Saturday lunchtime. In terms of the match itself, I think West Brom are a little bit behind Fulham at the moment. Both had a spell of inconsistency, and I feel that Fulham have just got out of that. West Brom are perhaps on the final stage of that they need something to click. Obviously, Moat's been out as well, which I think is a massive loss. Helps Fulham dominate the midfield, which I think could be a key battle in determining who could win this game. And then you just got to think of the midfield options that Fulham have with Kearney coming back in. Carvalho, I'm not too sure how far away he is from being back playing a good chunk of football. Grant, though, is in good form. There's a lot of reasons why both teams could go out and win this, but I think Fulham might just have the upper edge and win this 1-0. Okay,
yeah, no, I can also see Fulham just about edging it. I think they're on a real roll at the moment. Since the international break, they've been on fire, scored 10 goals, only conceded one all 3 games, looking very strong at the moment. I think they, with home advantage as well, could just edge out the baggies. I'll go 2-1 to Fulham. One final Championship game involving a London club, and that's Millwall's trip to Huddersfield. Obviously level on points in the Championship. 21 points seems to be the place to be at the moment in the second tier, all challenging for that playoff spot or that top 6 spot. How do you see this one going, Billy? 2 sides that will obviously look at it and see it as a good opportunity to try and underline their playoff credentials a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's 2 sides that are very difficult to beat. I think Huddersfield at home, 13 points from 7 games. Millwall, now four wins from their last 5, but they're 2 teams that have perhaps Huddersfield. I didn't expect them to be this tough to beat. Millwall, you do expect it. They're always been a tough side to come and break down and to get points against. But Huddersfield are also proving that, and I think Corberan's doing an excellent job. Usually sort of winning the defensive battle and then using his more attacking players to get into good positions and sort of win games in the second half. That's the way I see Huddersfield getting success out of Millwall. But equally, Millwall are a team in confidence, 4 wins in 5, probably set up to stop the threat of Huddersfield at the start, and then see Jed Wallace increase in sort of influence as the game wears on. Quite difficult to split these two, and I'm going to go for my favourite 1-1.
Yeah, no, to be honest, I can understand that completely. I was also thinking 1-1 for this one, so I'll stick with you. As you say, 2 teams that, on paper look pretty evenly matched, and as the table suggests as well, they're pretty close together too, so it could well be a draw between these two. Let's look ahead to the fixtures in League One then. As we mentioned earlier on, Charlton got a massive game at the Valley against Doncaster Rovers, 2 teams that have not had it all their own way at all really this year so far in the 3rd tier. But obviously, we mentioned Charlton picked up a good win at Sunderland last weekend, and it's a good opportunity for them to start building a little bit of momentum, isn't it, Billy? And obviously get a result against the Doncaster side that's one of the few teams that's below them in the table at the moment.
Yeah, an excellent opportunity to build on last week's result at Sunderland, and I think that was the hardest game against Sunderland, hardest game they could have hoped for, and perhaps this is the easiest one that they could have hoped for. So it's 2 extremes for Johnny Jackson to start with, and it'll be interesting to see first how he sets up, and 2 how they actually do, and how the result actually plays out, because Johnny Jackson, as well as he is a legend at the club, and as much as fans do want him to get the permanent role, I think it's a results-based business where if he doesn't pick up any points in this game and that sort of rot continues into the next 2 or 3, then yeah, he's in a very precarious position.
What's your score prediction for this one?
I'm going to go... I do see Charlton winning this one. I do think they can build on last week's result, and I'll go for a 2-0 win. Yeah,
I do agree with you there. I think Charlton will get a very important win. They've obviously got, there's still plenty of quality in that team, and I think Jackson might be able to start unlocking it a little bit more than Adkins unfortunately couldn't. I'm also going to go for a 2-0 win for the Addicts in that one. One other League One game sees Wimbledon head to Cambridge United. Billy, I'm looking obviously at the defensive problems that we've seen in terms of their injuries that we've touched on earlier on in the show. I just wonder whether Cambridge might just sneak it because of that 1-0. Both teams are quite out of form, I think that's fair to say, in League One at the moment. How can you see this one go?
I think both teams have conceded a fair few goals this season, but both have shown that they can score a few. So I'm expecting something quite high scoring. As you say, that the news, the 2 centre-backs missing, that's big, that's massive for Wimbledon, who are perhaps starting to look over their shoulder now, which didn't seem the case at the start. But yeah, injuries and other external factors have sort of turned things a little bit at the club. I still think they're a strong squad, and I like what Robinson is doing there, but that's sort of the nature of League One. You lose a few games, you go out of form, and then you're quite close to the League One relegation places, and especially when you've had the likes of Ipswich and Charlton down there this season, when they hit form like they're bound to be, then it leaves teams that have gone out of form like Wimbledon quite exposed, I feel. Cambridge, they've been difficult to read. I think they've got good points against Ipswich and Sheffield Wednesday, but they've also won as well against Portsmouth and Bolton, but then heavy losses against Lincoln and Shrewsbury have followed. So they're a very difficult team to predict, but I do see goals, so I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw.
Okay, a little bit more exciting than my prediction. Just before we go then, let's look at Sutton United and Leyton Orient's fixtures in League Two. As we mentioned, Orient, 4 draws on the spin. They host Hartlepool this weekend. Hartlepool obviously sitting 8th in the table, so it's 2 teams that will have playoff ambitions as things stand in the 4th tier. What do you make of this one, Billy? I'm kind of tempted by another draw, unfortunately for Orient fans. What about you?
I'm tempted, but sort of looking into Hartlepool a little bit more, I think I'm going to go in the way of Orient. I think Orient at home have kept 5 out of 7 clean sheets this season. And then Hartlepool's 23 points, only 4 of them have come away from home. So I think in that respect, all is pointing towards Leyton Orient winning. And I don't know if it's me bringing bad luck on them, because I'm always so positive about them. So yeah, I don't know really what's going wrong. I think, as I mentioned before, some things need to change in terms of tweaking personnel, tweaking the formation perhaps, and sort of tactical tweaks as well could help Orient get back to winning ways. But yeah, I think this could be a good opportunity for them to beat a side that have been poor away. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 win, I think, 1-0 Orient's way.
Okay, they will certainly take that. And before we go, Sutton hosting Walsall. Sutton obviously still sitting in the playoff places, having a really good campaign so far. And Walsall shown a little bit of fight and resilience in recent weeks as well. Managed to climb themselves up into mid-table. Now sitting 14th in League Two. It wasn't too long ago where they were very much looking over their shoulder at the relegation spot. So they'll be looking to build on that against Sutton this weekend. Billy, I think I'm just going to edge with the London club. I think I might just go 2-1 to United, but Walsall have improved in recent weeks, so there's every chance they could get a result themselves. What are you thinking about this one? Where can you see it going?
Well, I'm not going to go for a draw. Sutton haven't drawn in 11. This is something that they seem to either take all 3 points or leave without any. So yeah, I think it'll be a tight match in terms of how Sutton play. They always sort of seem to have matches where neither team are particularly dominant, but a team ends up going on to win the game. I think Sutton have also responded well to 2 consecutive defeats by beating Colchester 3-1. So I think they might be able to pick up another 3 points here and perhaps edge it 1-0.
Okay, we shall see what happens there. Billy, thanks very much for joining me this afternoon. Been a pleasure listening to your thoughts on the different capital EFL clubs. People at home and wherever you've been watching, thanks as well for getting in touch. Do enjoy the football when it comes this weekend. Good luck to your respective teams as well across the capital. Myself and Billy will be back next Thursday with the EFL London Show here on Football League World TV. In the meantime, if you can, do subscribe to our YouTube channel, Football League World TV on YouTube. That'd be very much appreciated. But from us here, it's bye for now.